It started with the sound of tires. Not loud or screeching, just that soft crunch of gravel under rubber that didn't belong to any car we owned. I'd hear it every night. 10:42 p.m. Give or take a minute. A hum. A pause. Then silence. At first, I chalked it up to a neighbor. We lived on a cul-de-sac where sound traveled strangely after dark. Maybe someone was parking outside before going in. But I knew our neighbors. Most of them didn't stay up past the nightly news, let alone take late-night drives. I didn't say anything to Julia, my wife. I didn't want to sound paranoid. But the third night in a row, I peeked through the blinds of our bedroom window, careful not to shift the curtains too much. There it was. A black sedan. Not shiny, not beat up either. The kind of car that disappears in a parking lot because it looks like every other one. It didn't have the flash of a sports car or the elegance of a luxury vehicle. Just a regular, unremarkable car sitting directly across from our house, engine off, lights out. It didn't move for almost 20 minutes. By the time I turned back toward the bed, Julia was brushing her hair at her vanity. She didn't seem to notice anything odd. I stood there for a moment, staring at her, wondering if I should say something. But I didn't. The next night, I waited for it. And sure enough, 10:41. Same car. Same spot. No one got out. No one went in. It just sat there. I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, while Julia slept beside me. The soft whir of the ceiling fan did nothing to drown out the gnawing in my chest. I told myself there were logical explanations. Maybe it was a neighbor's guest who didn't want to crowd the driveway. Maybe a rideshare driver catching a nap between pickups. Maybe. But I knew better. I felt it. By the fifth night, curiosity turned to obsession. I stayed up watching from the darkened guest room, blinds cracked just enough to spy without being seen. The sedan pulled in at its usual time. Its brake lights glowed faintly before the engine cut. No one came or went. No lights inside the car. No music. Just silence. I decided to approach it. I stepped quietly outside, barefoot, my breath tight in my chest. The air was cool, the smell of pine hanging faintly from the nearby woods. My footsteps made no sound on the grass as I curved around our yard and approached the car from behind. But just before I reached it, the engine flared to life. I froze. The car pulled off slowly, deliberately, as if aware of my approach. It didn't speed away. It didn't squeal tires. Just slipped into the darkness beyond the cul-de-sac and was gone. I stood there for a long time, heart pounding, skin prickled with goosebumps. That car wasn't parked out of coincidence. It was watching something. Or someone. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, over coffee, I watched Julia laugh at something on her phone. Her hair was still damp from the shower, curls falling against her cheek in that perfect mess of effortlessness. We'd been married for 7 years. She still made me pause, even in the small moments. But I couldn't shake the feeling. The car. The pattern. The timing. So I asked, casually, "You notice a black car across the street some nights?" She looked up from her cup. "No? Why?" I shrugged. "Just seen it a few times. Same time. Just sitting there. Doesn't look like anyone gets out." She sipped her coffee. "Probably someone waiting on a friend or a neighbor. Could even be security or a patrol. Maybe." But I saw the flicker in her eyes. It was quick. So quick I could have missed it if I hadn't been watching her that closely. A week passed. The car stopped showing up. Just like that. Then, one evening, I pulled into the driveway after work to find Julia already home, something that rarely happened. Her car was parked on the far edge of the drive, the way she used to when she expected guests. I went inside. She was in the kitchen, chopping garlic. "Hey," I greeted. She smiled, but it was thin. "Hey, dinner soon." We ate in near silence. That night, she slipped into bed early, claimed she had a headache. I stayed downstairs, pretending to scroll through TV options, but really just listening. At 10:40 p.m., I rose from the couch and crept to the window. The car was back. Same black sedan. Same exact spot. But this time, something changed. Julia walked out the front door. I didn't move at first. My brain struggled to process what I was seeing. She was in her coat, holding her phone, scanning the street like someone waiting for a ride. She walked directly to the car, opened the passenger door, and got in. The car drove off slowly. No rush. No urgency. Gone. I stood there, still as the furniture, my thoughts spiraling. She said nothing about going out. No mention of errands. No last-minute plans. Just climbed into a strange car, one that had been silently haunting our street and vanished into the night. I sat down on the stairs. My legs wouldn't carry me any farther. My hands trembled. My mouth went dry. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a coincidence. My wife, the woman I had built a life with, had just gotten into that car. I don't know how long I sat there, staring at the front door, willing her to return. But she didn't. Not that night. Not for many hours. When she finally came back, sometime past 3 a.m., I was pretending to sleep. She moved quietly, tiptoeing into the bedroom, peeling off her coat with the delicacy of someone not wanting to be heard. She crawled into bed beside me, thinking I had no idea. But I did. I knew everything had changed, and I was going to find out just how deep it went. I didn't confront her the next morning. It took everything in me not to. I watched her pour coffee like nothing happened, wearing the same blue robe she always wore when she wanted to appear soft, familiar, normal. She smiled and made casual chatter about work schedules and grocery runs, but I wasn't listening. Not really. I kept seeing the image of her slipping into that car like it was second nature. That was what got me. There was no hesitation in her steps, no quick glances over her shoulder, no nervous energy. She didn't act like someone sneaking around. She acted like someone who'd done this before. And maybe she had. Maybe it wasn't the first time she'd gotten into that car. Just the first time I saw it. At work, I was useless. I sat at my desk, fingers hovering over the keyboard, staring at my monitor like it held some secret I hadn't yet unlocked. I tried to push through my projects, but my thoughts kept folding in on themselves. Who was he? Where did they go? How long had it been going on? There was a camera in the garage I'd installed years ago, part of a security upgrade after a rash of break-ins nearby. I rarely checked the footage. But that afternoon, I pulled up the archive on my phone. There she was. 10:42 p.m. M sharp. Front door opens. She walks out briskly, no hesitation. She doesn't look around. Just straight to the car. In a coat. No purse. Just her phone. And at 3:16 a.m., she returned. Same outfit. Different posture. Shoulders slack. Head down. She moved like she was sleepwalking. And yet, when she came back inside, she stopped in the hallway and smiled. Not at anyone. Just this faint, lingering grin. Like she was reliving a moment. A memory. I felt something crawl under my skin. That evening, I brought up the idea of us needing a night together. A date. Just us. She agreed, too eagerly. We haven't been out in forever, she said, brushing her hair into a ponytail. Maybe this weekend? Tomorrow, I suggested. She hesitated. Tomorrow I've got that thing with Lila. I raised an eyebrow. Lila. She blinked. My coworker. Right. The one she hadn't mentioned in months. Can't you reschedule? I asked. Her smile was thin, almost mechanical. It's been on the books for a while. I promised. Okay, I said, forcing calm into my voice. Next week, then. That night, I moved quietly through the house. While she was in the shower, I checked her purse. Nothing. No second phone. No notes. Just gum, lip balm, and a receipt from a gas station 2 towns over. Time-stamped at 12:11 a.m. 12:11. I hadn't even known gas stations were still open then. I took a photo of it with my phone. After she fell asleep, I slipped into the garage and double-checked the camera angle. It had a clear shot of the driveway. I tweaked the settings, set it to alert me whenever motion triggered it during the night. At 10:39 the next evening, I got the alert. I opened the app. There she was. Same coat. Same time. Same steps. But this time, something changed. As she stepped toward the car, she paused. Turned. Looked straight at the camera. Not the lens, necessarily, but the general direction. She tilted her head slightly, as if listening for something. For someone. Then she continued walking and got into the sedan. The door shut quietly. The car eased away. I didn't breathe for several seconds. Did she know? I stayed awake until almost 4 a.m., watching the driveway. When she returned, she moved faster than before, like she didn't want to be out there long. She didn't look at the camera this time. When she slipped back into bed, I waited a few minutes, then whispered, "You okay?" She flinched. Just a little. Enough. HM? Yeah, she said, curling away from me. I couldn't sleep. Went for a drive. At 3:30 in the morning? Alone? I asked, keeping my tone casual. She hesitated a beat too long. Yeah. I stared at the ceiling. Where'd you go? Just around. Cleared my head. Okay. She said nothing more. I heard her breathing deepen, but I knew she wasn't asleep. Neither was I. The next morning, I took a personal day and drove to the gas station from the receipt. It was a 24-hour place tucked beside a strip mall. The kind of place you forget as soon as you leave. I walked inside and showed the clerk the receipt on my phone. Hey, I think this was printed here a few nights ago. I lost my wallet and was wondering if someone turned it in. He barely glanced at it. Nah, man. Nobody's turned anything in. Mind if I check your camera footage? Around midnight on the 8th? He stared at me. You a cop? No. Just trying to figure out something personal. He sighed. I'm not supposed to, but whatever. It's boring as hell anyway. He pulled up the footage. We fast-forwarded to the timestamp. And there she was. Julia. At pump 6. She wasn't alone. She stepped out of the black sedan and handed the pump to a man in a navy jacket. Tall, clean-shaven, average build. Could have been anyone. Could have been no one. She was laughing. He brushed a hand against her cheek. A small, intimate gesture. Then she kissed him. My wife kissed another man at a gas station at midnight. And then they drove off together like it was nothing. I stood there frozen, watching the screen repeat the motion over and over again in the loop. That her? The clerk asked, almost apologetic. Yeah, I said quietly. That's her. Back in the car, I sat in the parking lot for a long time. My hands were shaking. My stomach felt like it was folding into itself. This wasn't just an affair. It was practiced, rehearsed, comfortable. I looked at the footage again on my phone and noticed something I hadn't caught before. The man, he had a badge clipped to his belt. A police badge. And Julia, she looked like she belonged in that car. That night, I said nothing again. I needed more time. More information. More proof. At 10:41, I got the motion alert. I didn't move. I watched her leave, watched her get into the car. But this time I followed. I waited 2 minutes, then slipped out the back, started my car, and drove with my lights off until I was 2 blocks away. The sedan took a right toward the highway. I hung back, keeping a few cars between us. My heart was in my throat the whole time. They drove for 15 minutes. Then they pulled into a motel. Not a fancy hotel. A motel. The kind with flickering neon signs and hourly rates. I parked across the street, engine off, heart pounding. And I watched her walk into a room with him, the door closing behind them like the lid of a coffin. She didn't look back. I don't know how long I sat there. The engine was off, but my body was burning with adrenaline, like I had just run a marathon and was still waiting for the gunshot to start it. The motel sat there in the orange flicker of its dying neon sign, quiet and ugly in the way those places always are, a graveyard for secrets, with walls too thin to contain the lies whispered inside them. Room 212. That was the one they entered. I counted the windows from the end of the building. I had this ridiculous thought that maybe it wasn't what it looked like. Maybe they were doing something else. Something innocent. A project. A crisis. A favor. But then the curtains twitched, and I saw her silhouette. Her arms lifted, hair falling back. Then another shape moved behind her. Close. Intimate. There was no room left for doubt. I gripped the steering wheel like it was the only thing anchoring me to the world. My knuckles whitened. My jaw clenched so tightly I thought I heard something pop. I wanted to storm across the street. Bang on that door. Drag her out. Scream. Make it messy. Public. Unforgettable. But I didn't. I didn't move. Instead, I pulled out my phone and took a photo. The car. The room number. The timestamp. And then I drove home. My hands were shaking so hard, I nearly sideswiped a parked truck. I got out of the car, made it inside, and collapsed into the armchair by the fireplace. The house was so quiet. Too quiet. It felt like it was holding its breath, like it knew, too. Her coat was still gone. Her side of the closet undisturbed. Her perfume still hung in the air, that warm, vanilla scent that used to make me feel safe. Now it turned my stomach. I sat there until the lights from my phone illuminated the room. A text. From her. Hey, staying late with Lila. She's having a tough night. Don't wait up. Love you. I stared at it, rereading it like it was written in a foreign language. Don't wait up. Like she hadn't just slipped out of my life and into someone else's bed. I didn't respond. I just stared into the dark until morning. By the time Julia returned the next day, I had already left for work. I couldn't look at her yet. Not without doing something I'd regret. But I watched her through the camera feed as she walked through the house, casual as ever, humming as she made coffee. She texted me. Sorry again for last night. Let's do dinner tonight, just us? I'll make reservations. Sure. Let's do dinner. Let's act normal. Let's pretend you didn't lie to my face and give your body to someone else under a motel sign that blinked like a dying heart. I responded simply. Sounds good. That evening, she wore the red dress. The one I bought her on our anniversary. Low back, cinched waist, the kind of dress you remember. She twirled in it when I first gave it to her, smiling wide, eyes bright. Now all I saw was a costume. We ate at a small bistro downtown. White tablecloths. Low candlelight. She laughed easily, sipped wine, made jokes. She talked about work, about Lila's hard week, about needing to take more time for us. I nodded, played along. I even smiled. Inside, I was spiraling. I kept seeing her silhouette in that motel room. Kept hearing the lie in her voice as she said, "Love you," in a text she typed while her skin probably still smelled like him. She didn't know I knew. Not yet. But I was done waiting. That night, after she fell asleep, I got out of bed and went to the closet. In the box where we kept old files, tax forms, home warranties, insurance papers, I found what I was looking for. Her old phone. The one she switched out last year. She claimed it was slow, not holding charge. I'd offered to take a look, but she replaced it before I got the chance. I plugged it in. It powered on. No passcode. She must have wiped it before tossing it in the box. But the backup data is still loaded, including the linked cloud account. Messages. Photos. I went through them slowly, methodically, scrolling through months. Names. Numbers. Then I saw one labeled M. Just M. The texts were cryptic at first. Same time. Miss you already. Last night was perfect. Then more specific. Hotel names. Room numbers. Photos. And one selfie of the two of them. Her head on his shoulder, both smiling in the warm, grainy light of a hotel room. The man was the same one from the gas station. Now I had a face. I cross-referenced his license plate with a DMV lookup service I subscribed to as part of my job, a holdover from an old private security project I once ran. It wasn't hard. Detective Marcus Hale. Local PD, married. 2 kids. I sat back and stared at the name on the screen. A cop. Of course. That's why she felt untouchable. That's why the car came like clockwork. Why he was so calm. Why she never worried. She thought she was protected. But no one is untouchable. I spent the next week gathering everything I needed. Photos, videos, time logs, receipts, copies of texts. I used the camera feeds, the garage footage, even the GPS data from the old phone. I created a digital folder, then a physical binder. Every betrayal, documented. And then, I mailed it anonymously. 1 copy to the Internal Affairs Division, 1 to Marcus Hale's wife, and 1 to Julia's office. The fallout was immediate. 3 days later, Marcus Hale was suspended pending investigation. His wife filed for separation. Took the kids. His name hit the local papers with vague mentions of allegations of misconduct. The details weren't public yet, but they would be. And Julia? She came home that night white as a ghost, slamming the door behind her. Why didn't you tell me? She demanded, eyes wide. Why didn't you say anything? I sat on the couch, flipping through channels. Tell you what? I asked. About the videos. The photos. The envelope at work. I turned to her, calm. You mean the ones of you getting into the wrong car every night? She stared at me like she didn't recognize me. You were spying on me? I was watching my house, I said. You just happened to be part of the footage. She collapsed into a chair, breath shaky. I didn't mean for it to go this far, she whispered. I didn't think you'd ever find out. That made me laugh. I couldn't help it. She didn't think I'd find out. Of course not. Because he made her feel invincible. I want to fix this, she said finally. But I was already standing. You can't fix what you burned down, I said quietly. She reached for me. I stepped back. And then I walked out the front door, leaving her in that house of perfect lies. I didn't go far that night. I drove, aimlessly at first, just to feel the road under me, to remind myself that I was still moving forward even if everything else felt stuck. There's something about highway lights at midnight, the cold, fluorescent gleam of them, endless and indifferent. They don't care if your marriage has collapsed. They just keep flashing past you, mile after mile. I pulled into a roadside motel about 40 minutes outside town. Not the one she used. Somewhere quiet, anonymous. I paid in cash. The room was plain. Pale yellow walls, an old television bolted to a table, the faint smell of bleach and loneliness. I sat on the bed and stared at the cracked ceiling, not tired but hollowed out. There was no rush to decide what came next. The exposure was done, the damage delivered. But I hadn't planned past the burn. I just wanted her to know what it felt like to be powerless. I wanted him to watch everything he built fall apart, just like I watched Julia walk into that black sedan like our marriage never mattered. My phone buzzed just before 1 a.m. "Julia, please answer me. I need to talk to you. You don't have to forgive me. Just, let's talk." Then a second message. "Julia, he's saying I told you. He's blaming me for the fallout. I didn't. I swear I didn't." And then silence. I didn't respond. I couldn't decide what was worse, her betrayal or her cowardice. She'd broken us, and now she was scrambling to act like we could glue it all back together, like love could be summoned with just enough pleading. But love wasn't a faucet. It was a mirror. Once cracked, it might still reflect something, but it would never be whole again. By morning, I made up my mind. I returned home just after dawn. The streets were empty. The sky was pale with the kind of sunrise that doesn't feel earned, soft pinks and grays like the world was apologizing for waking you. Her car was still in the driveway. The house looked exactly as I'd left it. But something felt off. Too still. Too quiet. When I stepped inside, I heard her in the kitchen. Not moving. Just breathing. I walked in and found her sitting at the table, still wearing yesterday's clothes. Her eyes were red. Puffy. She hadn't slept. There were papers on the table, marriage documents, tax returns, even baby pictures. A photo of us at the lake, one summer, before things got complicated. She'd laid them all out like evidence. "Do you even want to save this?" she asked softly, voice hoarse. I didn't sit. "I don't know." Her hands trembled. "I don't know why I did it." At first, I was angry. Then it just kept going. He made me feel seen. I swallowed that line like poison. "I saw you." "I know," she whispered. "That's what makes it worse." We stood there in silence, the ghosts of our better years staring up from the photographs on the table. I couldn't look at her. I didn't trust my face not to crack wide open with everything I still felt. Everything I used to feel. "I need space," I finally said. She nodded, like she'd expected that. Maybe even wanted it. "I'll stay with my sister," she said. "You can stay here. I'll go." "No," she insisted, standing. "You built this house. I stained it." It was the first honest thing she'd said in weeks. The following days blurred. She moved out that afternoon. No theatrics. No fights. She took only a suitcase and a small box of essentials. The rest, she left behind. Reminders of a life she'd stepped outside of long before I ever caught her. I took a leave of absence from work. I told my boss it was personal. He didn't ask questions. Just gave me a pat on the shoulder and said, "Take whatever time you need." I spent most of it driving. Rural backroads. Forgotten towns. Abandoned gas stations with sun-faded signs and vending machines that hadn't worked since the 90s. I needed distance, not just from her, but from the version of me that had accepted too little for too long. But even on the road, she lingered. Her voice in my head. The curve of her back as she walked into that car. The faint scent of her perfume on my jacket that I couldn't scrub out. I kept thinking about Marcus Hale, the detective. The man who used his badge as a cloak, his married life as a lie. I thought about his kids, his wife, the collateral damage left in his wake. And then I thought about revenge. I thought I was done. I wasn't. 1 week later, I returned home. The air inside the house was stale. Dead flowers on the dining table. A silence that had settled in, thick and watchful. Like the house itself was holding its breath, waiting to see who I'd become. I went upstairs to the bedroom and opened the closet. Her side was still mostly full, dresses hanging like ghosts, shoes lined up in neat rows. But something was different. There was a shoebox missing from the top shelf. The one I knew she used for old phones. That's when it hit me. The second phone, the one she hid, the one I cloned. I'd put it back after copying its contents. But I hadn't checked to see if she ever found it. If she had, she could have seen the clone notification. She could have known I had everything. But then, why would she be so surprised? I checked my laptop. There it was. A new file. Created 2 days ago. Open once. Inside, the logs from the clone. The texts. The photos. She'd found it. She knew. That explained the desperation. The sudden messages. The overnight shift from denial to remorse. She knew the truth was out. Not just to me, but to everyone. She had watched her second life crumble in real time. But what she didn't know was what came next. Because I wasn't finished. The day after she moved out, I made another delivery. This time, it wasn't anonymous. I mailed a letter to her boss. Not with the photos, but with a detailed timeline of dates Julia had lied about work obligations while actually meeting with Marcus Hale, including times when she claimed to be on company assignments. Attached were receipts, gas logs, and hotel timestamps. The company had strict ethics policies. They didn't fire her outright, but they put her on indefinite leave while they reviewed internal violations. And just like that, the pedestal she stood on cracked. But I wasn't done. Because while she'd been in that motel, that black sedan had parked in front of my home almost every night for months. And sometimes my kids were home. Sometimes I was gone. Sometimes Marcus Hale, a cop, had left his car running, watching our house like it was his territory. So I submitted a formal complaint to the police review board. Detailed, methodical, unemotional. And I included every security video. Within 72 hours, Marcus Hale's suspension turned into a forced resignation. His pension? Frozen pending investigation. His badge? Gone. His wife? She emailed me. Subject line: thank you. That night, I returned home and found a note on the doorstep. Julia's handwriting. It read, I know I broke everything. I'm not asking for forgiveness. Just clarity. Why did you wait? I stared at the note for a long time, then flipped it over. I wrote, because you were already gone. I was just waiting to see what you took with you. But then something happened I hadn't expected. At 10:42 p.m., the car returned. Same black sedan, parked right across the street. But this time, no one got in. No one got out. It just sat there, watching, waiting. And then, slowly, the driver's door opened. And Julia stepped out. Alone. She stood there in the dark, staring up at the house. And then, as she walked toward it, she didn't knock. Julia stood on the front porch like she didn't know whether to run or beg. Her coat was too thin for the cold. Her hands were bare. And even through the glass, I could see the shimmer in her eyes, the way her mouth trembled but refused to speak. I opened the door before she could. Why are you here? I asked, my voice flat. She blinked. Because I don't know who else I am without this house. It wasn't the answer I expected, not an apology, not a plea. Just a confession, raw and small. She stepped inside slowly, like she thought the floor might collapse beneath her feet. I didn't stop her. I didn't welcome her, either. She stood in the hallway, staring at the place she used to live, like it had become a museum exhibit. Familiar, but untouchable. I shouldn't have come, she said after a moment. I needed to see it again. One last time. I crossed my arms. Then look. And go. Her shoulders slumped, but she didn't move. I lost everything, she said quietly. My job. My reputation. My sister won't speak to me. The Hale family's in pieces. And I deserved it. I know I did. But I thought maybe if I could just talk to you without the fire between us. I cut her off. There was fire because you lit it. She nodded. I know. A silence stretched between us. The kind that doesn't invite words. Finally, she looked up at me. Her eyes were duller than I remembered. Older. Not just from time, but from the weight of what she'd done. I thought you'd scream, she said. I did, I replied. Just not where you could hear it. She tried to smile at that, but it cracked halfway through. Why him? I asked, surprising myself. I hadn't intended to ask. I wasn't even sure I wanted the answer. She exhaled slowly. Because he made me feel like I had a secret. Something separate from the laundry, the kids, the bills. I felt like someone else. Someone new. You didn't need someone new. You needed to fix what was old. I know, she said, voice cracking. But I was tired. I kept thinking, this is it. This is what the rest of my life will be. I wanted more. I thought he was more. She looked at me then, for real. Eyes wet. Face bare. But all he did was take. And I let him. I stayed quiet. She wiped her face, a bit too late to hide the tears. I wanted to say thank you, she said, for not destroying me completely. You could have, but you didn't. I tilted my head. Didn't I? She flinched, but didn't argue. I could feel the storm inside me settling. Not forgiveness, not peace, but something quieter. Not acceptance, maybe just recognition. Of what had been. Of what would never be again. You'll be okay, I said, surprising both of us. Her lip quivered. Will you? I didn't answer. Because I didn't know. She left without another word. No dramatic farewell. No final plea. She just walked back to that same wrong car, and drove off alone for the first time. I stood in the doorway, watching the taillights disappear into the night like the end of a chapter one hadn't wanted to read in the first place. When the silence returned, it felt different this time. Less haunted, more hollow. I spent the next week cleaning the house. Not just wiping counters or folding laundry, I mean really cleaning. I boxed up her things, every dress, every shoe, every letter or trinket that reminded me of who she'd once been to me. I didn't burn them. I donated them. Somewhere, someone would wear that red dress and have no idea what it once meant, or what it had destroyed. The bedroom felt twice as big with just my things inside. The mirror no longer reflected us. Just me. A month passed, then two, and slowly, the house stopped echoing with the memory of her. I went back to work. Friends started inviting me out again. Some evenings I actually said yes. I got used to sleeping diagonally across the bed. I stopped checking the cameras. I stopped checking her. And then one morning, I woke up and realized something unexpected. I felt light. Not happy, not joyful, but light. As if a weight had finally lifted that I didn't know I was carrying. I went for a drive that afternoon. No destination. Just a long loop through the city, out past the suburbs, and into the hills where the roads were tight and the trees leaned in like spectators. And then I saw it. A black sedan, parked along the shoulder. Empty. Engine off. Windows rolled down halfway. It wasn't the same car, not exactly. But it looked close enough. For a moment, my chest tightened. I thought maybe the past had followed me. But then a man emerged from the trees nearby, zipping up a backpack. He glanced at me, nodded politely, and got into the car. Just a hiker. Just a stranger. Not every black car held a ghost. That night, I stood in front of the mirror. I looked older. A little leaner, maybe. A little sharper around the eyes. But not broken. I stared at my reflection for a long time. And then I whispered something I hadn't said in months. I'm still here. A week later, I finalized the divorce. The papers came in a bland envelope with crisp signatures and dry legalese. I read every word. Then I put it in a drawer and walked outside. It was a clear day, cool air, no wind. And as I stood on my front porch, I noticed something strange. The street? It was quiet. No car across the road. No watching. No waiting. Just me. And it was enough.